All right. What's going on, guys? It is Michael McDonald, your host of the Rocket REI Live podcast. I am so excited and pumped, man. I got a special guest with me today. His name's Paul Logsdon. He's coming in from Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm excited to get going with this today. Going to drop a ton of value. And also for those tuning in live, since this is a live show, make sure to let us know where you're coming in from. Also, drop some comments as far as sharing this out there to other people. Hit the like button. Let's get this thing going. So, Paul, man, happy to have you here. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Michael, thank you for having me, brother. I really appreciate it. Anytime I get an opportunity like this, I really enjoy it, man. So I appreciate it.
Absolutely, for sure. So, as I mentioned in the title here, is you went from part-time real estate investor to full-time really in about 6 months time over a pandemic over the last crazy year. So for those like who don't know your story and know who you are, give everyone a little bit of background. Like, who are you? How'd you get into real estate?
Yeah, so my name is Paul Logsdon. Just turned 26 years old, and I'm living in Louisville, Kentucky. It's also where I run my business. Before I got into real estate, I did the whole college route. So I always played football. I walked on to the football team at the University of Louisville and got my degree in history. The plan was to become a high school principal and go back and get a master's degree and eventually find a six-figure job. But along the way, found out that that's not what I really wanted to do. Entered the workforce, got a good job that was paying like $30K a year on a salary, working my life away, absolutely hated it. So I was looking for another way because my goal was to make six figures. Like that was it for me. That's what I wanted to do. So I started exploring other options to do that. And I've always been a hard worker. So I started looking at sales jobs so I could be paid based on my performance, get paid for the results that I get, and that's what sales is. So I got my first sales job. It was a door-to-door sales job. I went door-to-door selling Sprint cell phone services and Vivint home security systems. Sold two products at the same time. It was pretty cool.
Nice.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And ended up opening a branch of that business in Dallas, Texas. So I moved there, had a business partner. We started up a new business in Dallas, Texas. And that was my first taste of entrepreneurship. Learned a lot of valuable skills and started trying out different side hustles. I did the marketing agencies, the drop shippings, any kind of online business that you can think of. I've probably tried it, and then a few others as well. But I found out about the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, read it, and my mind completely shifted to I got to get into real estate. But I didn't have any money to buy real estate or to fix and flip houses or anything like that. So I was really studying for a solid year about a lot of different strategies in real estate. And then one night, about a year after I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, I saw a video on YouTube. I think it was like Max Maxwell or something about wholesaling real estate. And I just became obsessed with everything wholesaling real estate. I watched as many free videos as I could, started like piecing together different strategies. And I started taking action immediately. Like the first thing I started doing was handwriting letters and kind of like doing a hybrid driving for dollars model where I would go around the neighborhood, look for rundown properties that were owner occupied. I would handwrite them a letter and leave it on their doorstep. And after a lot of those, like a lot, someone called me back and that's how I got my first deal.
Wow, man, that's insane. So I love the fact that you just went out there and started making it happen. Mark says, "What's up, brother Paul? Family in the building."
Mark.
So no, that's awesome, man. Thanks for kind of sharing how you got in there. And so, man, you always hear these door-to-door salesmen are like the absolute best when it comes to like hiring for sales, like into your company. And so it makes sense that you were willing to take that leap of faith. But I think a lot of people, man, like getting into this business, there's a fear to take that leap. So you started another business. What happened with the business out in Dallas? Like, is that still a thing, or did you move on from that to start your own real estate?
So the way the marketing company was set up, it was you would get promoted into management positions based on your performance, based on how many units you sold. So if you sell so many units, you actually get put into business in a new market for yourself. So I actually had a business partner, and we had our own LLC, and it was our company. But there's a lot of different things that went wrong. If I could put my finger on the number one thing that went wrong, it was having the wrong business partner, because we weren't aligned in the same vision. I wanted to take it to a level where we had a team under us, and we were making residual income based on the sales that our team made. And my business partner was more like Wolf of Wall Street party mindset. So with that kind of mindset in a place like Dallas will burn you to the ground. And that's pretty much what happened. So went broke in Dallas and had to come back home to Louisville. And actually I got another job. And then that's what led to January of 2020 when I found out about wholesaling real estate. Yeah.
So really, you moved back to Louisville. It was Louisville the market that you actually learned about wholesaling, and you got your first deal out in Louisville doing the letters and stuff?
Yes.
Okay. So you're out here in Louisville, right before the pandemic happens. Sounds like is when you got your first deal. Is that accurate there?
Yeah. So I got my first deal. It was like we contracted it, or I always say we. I contracted it. And then I worked with a partner to get it sold, and it actually closed on March the 4th, which was right when the entire country shut down. It was like we closed the deal day after they shut down everything, including the job that I was working at the time. So I had a full-time job. It was another sales job, and I was doing in-home sales appointments for like a contractor. And once they shut down the country, people didn't really want you going in their home. They really put their home projects in the sales consultations on the back burner. So the company I was working for was setting the appointments for me, and I would just go and do the inspection, set everything up, and close them. Well, we stopped getting sales appointments. And when you're a commission-only sales rep and you don't have any prospects, you don't have any sales, you're not making any money.
Right.
So the country shut down. I was pretty much didn't have a job, and I was in a position where I had a lot of free time. So I spent a lot of that time on wholesaling real estate, and I was able to quit my full-time job in June of 2020 because of it.
Dude, that's incredible. So you kind of didn't have any other option, right? Like it was your income kind of started slowing down due to the changes. And talk about just like having to figure things out. Like YouTube University, good old Max Maxwell, man. That guy has so much information out there. So you learned, you kind of just dove into things. And man, how was that with all that uncertainty? Like, obviously a lot of people tuning in today may be wanting to quit their full-time job and go full-time, but it's scary. Like, what was that like during that transition?
Yeah. So it was, I closed 3 deals before I actually quit my job. And like the day that I quit, I had a deal that was supposed to close that was kind of in the air. So talk about uncertainty. I didn't know if it was going to close because of some title issues. I was like, oh man, maybe, I don't know. Maybe I should have held on a little longer. But I'd say one thing that really helped me with a lot of the uncertainty was being a part of a community. And when I say a community, there's a group on Facebook called the Superhuman Wholesalers. and it's a huge group. There's like maybe like 13,000 members in there, but there's a private group as well. Most people don't know about the private group. And the private group was a group that meets weekly. It's probably about 100 people that met up every Sunday just to talk about our progress in our business, our goals, are we on track, like what struggles we're facing. And something about that group gave me the belief that I could do it. And if I was facing any struggles, I knew that I could get through it as well. So I found that group because I became obsessed with wholesaling real estate and consuming content. And my favorite content was Wholesaling Inc.'s podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget show 352 with Aaron Bevins. Something about that show made me like seek out Aaron Bevins and figure out like what he had going on. And he had the Superhuman group. And yeah, it changed the game for me.
Bro, that gives me chills just like hearing that, because Wholesaling Inc. was my like favorite podcast to listen to. It's kind of what kept me going. And being in that community, man, is so key. Aaron has created an amazing community over there. And it looks like, man, like we got My Superhuman Family's famous. Let's get it. Persistence, Paul's the man. Like it looks like a lot of superhuman people are coming in. And I've always heard Aaron talk about that campaign. And like, if you guys aren't a part of a community like that or an accountability thing like that, those things is what makes somebody kind of want to do this, to like, I'm doing this, faith to fact, let's go, all in. So that's amazing. So you kind of catapulted is when you got that accountability in that group, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever it's a principle that Napoleon Hill talks about, the mastermind principle. It's putting yourself in an environment conducive to success. So when everybody around you is winning, it's hard for you to not win. It's hard for you to look at someone who's winning and say like that they're doing something that you can't do. And that's pretty much how I looked at it. There's a lot of high level people in that group. And I would look at what they're doing. And I'd say, hey, maybe if I do what they're doing, I can achieve a similar result. And that's where a lot of my success came from, was pretty much copy and pasting the successful examples of other people.
Absolutely. I mean, why reinvent the wheel? I mean, these people are having success doing it. These people are running a 6-figure business or a 6-figure month business, which is where obviously you're heading. Why can't you do it? Why can't I do it? Man, anything's possible. But I love how you mentioned Napoleon Hill. I think a big piece that a lot of people forget about is like, you're only as good as your self-development. So if you're not working on this and improving every day, man, it's going to be hard to build a 6-figure business, let alone a 7-figure business. And so I know for me, that was a big part of my journey, just reading books and self-improvement, stuff like that. And so, man, I'm curious, like your first deal. So I did the same thing. I'm guessing maybe driving for dollars, writing down addresses, sending out those letters. What'd that first deal look like? How much, like dissect it a little bit. How much did you make? You found it through a letter. Like, how did that all go?
Yeah. So first deal, there's a hack, right? So I was driving for dollars, looking at houses that needed work. I remember this house specifically because it was like after a windstorm and some of the siding was blown off of the house. So it was like very obvious that the house needed attention. So I handwrote him a letter, and the secret is to actually put that letter in like a cardboard envelope. You can get those for free at the USPS store, so United States Postal Office. And it's just one of those envelopes that says like Priority Express. They give away for free. Don't ship those. They cost like $25 in shipping, but they give you the envelope for free and you can set them on people's doorstep. So that's what I did, because if you get one of those, there's no way you're not going to open it up and see what's inside.
Dude, I'm shaking my head and smiling so big because I literally I've never heard of this ever. And I've
Yeah.
watched a ton of podcasts and obviously interviewed a lot of people. So it's like insane. So that was the hack that obviously had that person's attention to you. And so I'm assuming they called you then from there.
Yeah. So they called me. That has like an incredible response rate, by the way. So they called me. I remember specifically where I was, what time it was. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. I was at Planet Fitness running on a treadmill. He calls me and says, "Hey, I got your letter and I want to sell you my house." I was like, "What?" Almost fell off the treadmill. So I like went over and like sat down. I started like just figuring out like, why does he want to sell me his house, and what does he want? Asked a few questions. Basically, he wanted to pay off on the house. I was like, "Well, I'm pretty sure that we can do that." Set an appointment to go see the house, and it was pretty rough. It was pretty rough shape. You know, it needed a lot of work, but it was in a great area. So ended up getting it under contract for, I believe, 82,000 is what we signed for. And I got my contract out of like a Facebook group. It was like one of the free generic contracts, and I still use that contract. Maybe tweaked a little bit. I still use that one to this day. So got under contract for 82,000. I had no idea what I was doing, to be honest with you. I didn't even have a buyer's list, but I knew somebody who was wholesaling in my market at a pretty high level, like actually at a very high level. They're not on socials, but they're doing the business at a very high level. So I brought the deal to him and I was like, "Hey, I got this deal, I think. Can you help me figure out what to do with it?" He was like, yeah. So he called over a buyer. Buyer walked through and bought it. And he said, "Yeah, I want it for 100." Let's see, I'm trying to think, what was the price? We made 26,000 on that one. So it was like, I don't know, I'm really bad at math.
Dude, 26,000 on your first deal?
Yeah. So we made 26K.
Unbelievable.
And we actually ended up giving the seller more money because the seller called me back and he was like, "Hey, do you think you can give me some extra money so I can, have enough to cover my moving expenses?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's no problem. How much do you need?" We ended up giving them $2,000 more just to cover miscellaneous expenses.
That was really generous of you.
Yeah, so the final price was 84,000.
Right on. So literally you go from like a $30,000 a year job not too long before this to almost making 30,000 in one deal. And I'm sure that right there gave you a little bit of motivation to, hey, if I can do, one or two of these a month, I think I'll be making some pretty good money.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, like, once I got that proof of concept, I became even more obsessed, and I started telling everybody. I was like, "Yeah, I made $26,000 in like 60 days or 30 days or whatever it was," and it's almost like nobody really believed me. No one really like knew that like it was really possible. It was like, "Yeah, I made this money and I didn't spend any money. I didn't I bought the house, but I didn't buy the house." And people just didn't understand. So I stopped telling people about what I was doing and just really started staying low key and just putting in the work. Just putting in the work. It completely changed my mindset for sure. Because I'd never held that much money at one time. I'd never seen that much money at one time. And it was just like an enlightening feeling.
I'll tell you what, man, I sure hope you have a picture holding that check with the biggest smile on your face, because I know I do for my first one. My first deal was 23,000. And I'll tell you what, like once you get that check and you hold that, you'll never look back. But that's the thing is like, this business is so unique in the fact that it's wholesaling. So we're not actually buying the property. So a lot of people don't even really believe it until, obviously they experience it for themselves. And then it's like, okay, this is pretty legit. So how much money do you think it costs to find that deal to then, obviously make that deal happen?
I say $0, but
Wow.
you're going to have a lot of people who are analytical and they're real technical people, and they're saying, "What about the gas? And what about the paper? And what about your time?" I was like, "Yeah, sure. But did I actually take any money out of my wallet and spend it to get this deal? No. Yes, I had to spend money on gas, but I'm already doing that anyway." I'm pretty sure anybody has a notebook laying around, and you can get the envelopes for free at the post office. So
Yeah.
truly, it was a $0 marketing budget to get that deal.
That's incredible. So there's no excuses. Like obviously it's scary to go out there and do that, to take the actions, but there's if for anyone in this watching, if you are, wanting to get your first deal or just be more consistent, just get out there and do it, man. Like that's all there is to it is once you can prove to yourself that this is how it's done, now you're going to be able to ramp that up and then you will have some marketing money. So did you actually take any of that money and put it back into the business, or what was the next step then moving forward from there?
All of it. I put all of it back into the business.
Wow.
Not at the same time, though. Not at the same time. I definitely didn't touch that money to spend on a new car or fancy stuff. Like I didn't spend it on any of that stuff, but I set it aside and I used it very strategically, right? So I think the next thing I did was figure out a better way to market to sellers because the handwriting letters, like it was great. It got me my first deal, but it was not sustainable because my hand was absolutely like on fire. I got to the point where it's like, dang, I'm going to get carpal tunnel writing all these letters.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I figured out a new marketing system, and that's where the Superhuman Wholesalers group really, came in the clutch, was figuring out my cold calling operation. So we ended up I figured out how to pull a list. We pull a list from PropStream. I figured out how to use an auto dialer, Mojo dialer. I love Mojo dialer. I think it's the best quality. Found out where to get phone numbers, the best quality phone numbers from. And then I put all that together and I did it myself first until I got probably my second deal. And then we put a virtual assistant in place and had the virtual assistant cold calling for us. And yeah, it worked out well for us. I think the key is finding that proven process. And then once you get your proven process, you can delegate and elevate, to do more things.
That's the key right there is delegate and elevate because you could make all those calls, but how are you going to get to your six-figure months by yourself? Because you can only make so many calls. And so it sounds like now you have a team, maybe of a VA or two, a couple callers. What's the team look like now to consistently do these deals you're doing?
Yeah. So right now we have one texter. We just onboarded a texter, and we have.
Texting's not dead. Texting's not
Oh
dead.
no, no, not at all,
Oh,
not
I'm
at
just playing.
all. As long as I can hit the send button, it's not dead.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I am a little late to the texting game. So I'd say if you're looking at texting, it's not too late. I just started last week, and I can tell you the amount of leads that we're getting is phenomenal. It is. I don't know why I didn't do it sooner. But yeah, we have two cold callers right now, and we're onboarding an appointment setter. That's my next hire, is an appointment setter, someone who can work out of our CRM, do follow-ups, and set appointments for acquisitions to go close. And right now, I'm acquisitions, transaction coordination, dispositions. Like I'm doing all of that, but I'm setting it up to where I can be in a position to remove myself from acquisitions. So yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Beautiful, man. I love it. So I'm curious, like what texting software are you using right now that's working?
Right now we're using REI Reply is who we're using.
I've heard good things about that for sure. In fact, we just went and looked at a property that we put under contract from texting. So obviously, even with the strictness of the compliance changes and stuff like that, guys, it still works. Don't let what's out there in the groups fool you. There's going to be a lot of people who are like, "Hey, texting sucks. Direct mail sucks. None of this works." And so if people are running from it, that may be a good time to actually go and do it. And proof is in the pudding with that lead flow you're getting right now. So that's amazing, man. So you have a vision, it sounds like, with your company, is to obviously fill these seats that you're doing many of these things in currently. And so what's the what's the timeline? What's that look like to get like to where you're wanting to go? Is like what's the next step for you in this business?
Yeah, so great question. Right now, I am on a campaign to where my sole focus, my sole goal is to have a business that creates $100,000 in gross profit, gross revenue every month over the next 100 days. So I'm calling it 100K in 100 days. And
Woo!
yeah, I'm not going to have a $100,000 a month business in the next 30 days, probably not the next 60 days. But by the time at the end of the next 100 days, I want to have that infrastructure and be well on track to hit those 100K months. And that way, next year, we'll be able to do that consistently in my business. So that's why I'm really focused on team building right now, in creating the infrastructure, because in the past, I've ramped up the marketing, but I didn't have the systems and processes in place to handle the leads. And one of my mentors said, if you do that, man, that's just reckless. And I thought that was funny. And it is reckless because you're spending money on marketing, whether you follow up with that lead or not, and it converts into a deal, you still spent that money on marketing. So you have to have a proper follow-up system.
Man, that's incredible. Such a good point. And I love how you're dreaming so big. Like 100,000 in a year for most people would be perfect. That's great. But why not 100,000 in a month? Why not? Anyone, if you can set it up that way, there's no reason why you can't. There's hundreds of thousands of people. I mean, thousands that are probably doing $100,000 months across this nation. And so I love the dream, man. I love the vision. And so one thing, see here that you said, man, I'm drawing a blank. Completely
scaling too fast.
Yeah, scaling too fast. Thank you. That is so true. It honestly, it happened to us to where we had so many leads coming in. We were in so many different markets virtually, and we just thought one acquisition manager and myself could just handle all this lead flow. And I will tell you, that is not. It's not good, man. Like things will fall through the cracks, and less leads taken care of and nurtured more, particularly, is going to get you further than oversaturating yourself. I always thought, oh, how cool would it be if I just had too many leads to deal with? Well, that happened, and it was like, oh, I forgot to give that person an offer or whatever. So, so true. And that's cool that you're, slow and steady wins the race in that fashion there. So I love it, man. So then one thing that I always like to ask on this is self-development questions. So do you have any favorite books, man, that obviously Rich Dad Poor Dad you had mentioned earlier in the podcast that have like changed your life or that you highly recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. The number one book is Think and Grow Rich. And this is my copy. I carry this copy specifically with me everywhere I go. And that's why it's like so beat up. I probably even bought it like at a half price books. So many notes in here, but it's my favorite book because it's so old. And if you look at any other self-development book, I can guarantee you that it's founded on the principles based in Think and Grow Rich. So Think and Grow Rich is a game changer. I first read it whenever I was 18 years old, and I only read like one chapter of it, but over the years I've gone through and read it several times over.
Man, it's so true. It's a classic, and it's a classic for a reason. Probably one of the best selling books, self-development wise. I've definitely read that one a time or two. So good stuff. Guys, for anyone in the group here, any questions for Paul? I want you to get your questions out there while we have him here. He's got a wealth of knowledge, building out a team, has this awesome vision. So superhumans. Let's hear some questions for Paul.
Yeah, where the superhumans at? What do you guys got for me, questions wise? Michael is also a beast when it comes to the real estate business. So a wealth of knowledge between the two of us for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we just, for people who might be tuning in for the first time or whatever, who don't know who I am, is we are in the process of expanding our operations. So we have like kind of started where Paul was 3 years ago. And obviously Paul's got a year and a half, couple years experience, but we are now to the point where we have a lead manager, a transaction coordinator. We have 2 acquisitions, and we are marketing to about 5 to 7 markets. We're going to be introducing 2 more markets here, and it's crazy. Like, things are coming in all directions, systems and processes. And so it's exciting. And I quit my job just over 2 years ago. And so it just gives you some perspective on, like, man, how fast can this thing like really take off and grow? And so I love what you have shared, man. I love the vision. And so after you reach your $100,000 a month, man, what's next? Like, are you going to start buying skyscrapers, or like what's going on there?
Yeah. So there's so many options, right? It would be great. I do want to eventually start owning real estate, because I think that is one of the best long-term strategies for true wealth building, is buying and holding real estate. But before I get there, I want to I think right now for me to do that, the opportunity cost is too big. And what I mean by that is the capital that I have built up. If I were to invest that in real estate, I could possibly miss an opportunity to make a greater return somewhere else. So after I get to that point where it's $100,000 a month business, I want to hit $200,000, $300,000 in a month, even $1 million in a month.
Let's go.
Definitely want to like replace Zillow as one of the best ways for a homeowner to sell their house online. Want to start a private equity firm, a hedge fund. That's kind of the vision.
Dude, I love it. I love that. That's so big. I love that. Like, please, we need to start a campaign just to take out Zillow. I'm out here in Vegas, and man, I'll tell you what, these guys are buying everything. They're disrupting the market. It's kind of insane seeing how much they're paying for houses, and it's like, man, I can't wholesale a house like when you're paying 92% of the retail value here. So
Ridiculous.
It's insane. Angela hopped on here. She says, "Persistent Paul in the building. It's about to get hot in here." Angela, what's up? Do you have any questions for Paul while he's here? Because we're coming to the end here, guys. So I want to make sure that if there is any questions, that we get those answered for you.
Angie B in the building. I love Angie. And if while everybody's typing their questions, I just want to say that like, if I could give one piece of advice, or maybe two pieces of advice, would be to one, stay persistent, because if you never quit, you'll never fail. In wholesaling, your story is likely to be different than mine. It might take you 2 months to get your first deal. It might take you a year. I know people personally, good friends, that it took them nearly 2 years to get their first deal. And now they're on track to make 6 figures this year. So don't ever quit. You have to really be patient. You have to be okay with delayed gratification, because this business, it is simple, but it's definitely not easy. And sometimes the biggest enemy is ourselves. So as long as you don't quit, you won't fail. And temporary defeat is not failure. The second biggest piece of advice that I kind of will preach to the mountaintops is join a community. Join a community of people who have the same vision, they have the same goal as you, and who are going to uplift you and share their knowledge with you. Because that community aspect will really help you be persistent on the days where you don't feel like putting in the work.
That's so true, man. That's so good. And people, I feel like it's so discouraging. You make all these offers and you get denied and get denied, but that's just part of the game. Like, you can't expect somebody to sell their house to us for 60, 70 cents on the dollar just for fun. Like, there has to be a problem there to solve. And by being persistent, you're literally one deal away from changing your entire outlook of life and future. And man, it took me 6 months to get my first deal. And had I quit on that $23,000 deal, I don't know where I'd be. I'd probably be working for corporate America still. So it's insane. Kevin says, I hear you. I'm still trying to crack the code for my first deal. Can you talk about lead flow and maximizing that, how to get consistent lead flow?
Yeah, so great question. I would say consistent lead flow, probably the number one thing that I see people mess up is being spread too thin among different marketing channels. For example, you'll do cold calling, and then you're also doing texting, and then you're also doing, I don't know, some other marketing channel. But cold calling and texting, they both work great, along with all the other marketing channels that anybody talks about. If someone's talking about it, it works.
Yeah.
But you have to really master one. And I like to think of it as, this is something that I learned in door-to-door sales, is what we call the gumball theory. So when you're thinking about picking different markets or picking different marketing channels, imagine that you have 3 gumball machines and they're all filled up with different colored gumballs, right? And you want to get a red gumball out of the machine, but you only have 10 quarters. Do you have a better chance of getting your red gumball out of a machine if you put your quarters evenly dispersed among the 3 machines, or if you put them all in one machine? Statistically speaking, you have a greater chance of getting the color gumball that you want if you put all of your quarters in one machine. So I think there's a great lesson in that. Whether you're cold calling or texting, pick one. Define your proven process. Close a couple of deals, and then move on to the next one. Same thing with markets. Pick one market. If you're trying to get your first deal, don't be marketing in Texas and Indiana or something along those lines. Just pick one. Yeah. As far as getting consistent lead flow, I think you have to take consistent action. For example, if you're cold calling, you need to be cold calling consistently for at least 1 hour a day. And the more you can cold call, the more hours you can put into that marketing channel, the faster you're going to get a deal. It's really a numbers game. So the more volume you can do, the more you're going to reduce your time that it takes. So as far as getting consistent leads, be consistent in the action, and the leads will come. A couple other things you can do that don't involve your action is just making sure that you have good quality data, because you don't want to spend all day calling the wrong phone numbers or texting the wrong phone numbers. Quality data. It's real tempting when you're starting out to be on a budget and go cheap on all the million software products that are out there in our industry. What I found is typically the cheap ones are cheap for a reason. So if you want to maximize your time, don't go cheap.
That's great advice, man. Hopefully that answers your question, Kevin. I know for me, that's like always advice that I give to people wanting more consistency is pick that marketing channel. It works. It's a proven concept. Do it until you can consistently get deals and outsource that. And then once that's up and running, now you can look at another marketing channel. And then the same thing applies. Like we were talking about earlier, if you spread yourself too thin, you're going to be doing a little bit here, a little bit there, and then you're never going to find that red gumball. You want to find and focus on that one thing until you can consistently see that, and then also tracking those types of things to say, hey, this is how many calls it took, this is how many leads it took to then get a deal. Now I can reverse engineer. I can hire that $6-7 an hour cold caller, outsourced, and double and triple down on that. And then all of a sudden you have too many leads, then you know what to deal with. And now you have to bring another, a sales guy in. And then all of a sudden it gets fun because you're consistently just continuing to grow this thing. And man, this is an exciting business. And Paul, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on here. Anyone have any other questions for Paul here before we hop off today?
Let me know. Drop them in the comments.
All right. Yeah. Mark says, how many calls on average to get a deal?
Oh, that's a really great metric, Mark. That's a great metric. I can't tell you how many calls because it's just the way my business is set up. I don't measure that right now.
I was going to be really impressed if you did know that number.
Yeah, because right now we're using I think I told you this, Michael. We're split testing 2 different cold caller companies, and they're using 2 different dialers, and it's just like complete. It's not a metric that I can track right now. But what I like to track is how many leads does it take to get a contract, and that one is typically going to be between 50 and 75 leads per contract for cold calling. And that's going to depend on the quality of your list, the quality of your data, things like that.
Yep. That's good. The type of list is crucial too. You might call a very niche list, and it's going to take maybe less leads than if you called a high equity or something that you're casting a wide net. You're going to talk to a little less motivation there, so that does have a factor. But good to know that the 50 to 75 range, and that's pretty standard, I think, across the board as far as in the industry for cold calls, especially. And so hopefully that gives you some clarity there, Mark. Good stuff, man. Thanks again, Paul. It's been awesome. Thank you so much. Appreciate the story. It's inspiring. I'm sure you inspired a ton of people today. So for those who maybe aren't connected with you already, where can people learn more about you and following your journey? Because I love your YouTube channel, man, as far as your transparency on there.
Appreciate it, man. Yeah. So on the YouTube channel, speaking of that, I'm going to be launching the 100K in 100 days. I'm going to be documenting my journey on there with a weekly video starting this week. So by the end of the 100 days, I will have showed you how to make $100,000 a month, because with the plan that I have, I'm very confident that I will have a $100,000 a month business within the next 100 days. So on YouTube, it's just Paul Logsdon, Logsdon. And then you can follow me on Instagram. If you want to send me a message, that's probably the best place to send me a message. And on Instagram, it's persistent_Paul. And then the same thing on TikTok. I'm on TikTok. I try to post some random stuff on there. But yeah, that's the best way. And you can always send me a friend request on Facebook, but you know how Facebook is. Those are they only give you so many requests. So yeah.
Amazing. Awesome, guys. So yeah, make sure to follow Paul. I put it in the chat here, persistent_Paul on those platforms. I love it. I love what you're doing, man. I think it's inspiring, and I'm sure we got a lot of people's gears going today. So thank you again, and thanks for everyone for tuning in. We appreciate the support, and until next time, we'll be signing off later.
Cool. See you guys.